were in 19 and 20 in the southwest field and things was tough. The miners was trying to bring the Union to West Virginia, and the coal operators and their gun thugs was set on keeping them out.
Tell them in the country, tell them in the town. Miners down in Mingo laid their shovels down. We won't pull another pillow, load another ton, or lift another finger till the Union we have won. Stand up, boys, let the boss know. Turn your buckets over.
My involvement with Hollywood is kind of 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
I'd say the major differences between most of the movies that Hollywood makes and the movies that I make is that they're a lot closer to what, happens in real life. The characters are much more recognizable as somebody who you could meet tomorrow and have be part of your life.
Listen to me now. Listen to me. Right now on Earth today, his name is Bolshevist, Socialist, Communist, Union Man, Lord of untruth, sower of evil seed, enemy of all that is good and pure, and this creature walks among us.
I don't think I would be a very good filmmaker of only deeply personal films which spoke to a small group of people. My influences were all mainstream American films when I grew up, traditional films, if you will, traditional American films, if you will, and I think I sort of fell into trying to make those kinds of films. Within that, I do the best I can do with my capabilities to make films which have some intelligence in their content. But it's always a worry. This film here is a big worry. It's cost a lot of money. It has to be seen by a lot of people or it's a major flop.
Where the hell do you come off sending me your roommate's play for you to star in? I'm your agent, not your mother. I'm not supposed to find plays for you to star in. I'm supposed to field offers, and that's what I do.
Field offers? Who told you that? The Agent Ferry? That was a significant piece of work. I could have been terrific in that play.
Michael, nobody's going to do that play.
Why?
Because it's a downer, that's why. Because nobody wants to produce a play about a couple that moved back to Love Canal.
But that actually happened.
Who gives a shit? Nobody wants to pay $20 to watch people living next to chemical waste. They can see that in New Jersey.
I mean, it's great. You get to play out your fantasies, and people come to you and ask you stuff, and you tell them answers, and they go away as if you know what you're doing. But the fact is that we are workers for hire, and because of that, we are making a product for someone. It's Richard Donner's parking space. He's not in it.
I've advised him to change his name. Great directors have names like Orson, Francois, Federico. Supermarket managers are called Joe. Still, the Gremlins admired his taste. He tasted delicious.
Well, here we are. What a great shot. these guys is me.
Really?
Yeah, that's me there. It's a low-budget movie. No, that's not me. This is me. See? The guy who looks like he can't swim? Yeah, well, you do that. You know, that saved us a lot of money right there. I don't get killed, though. It's my movie.
No le tocan así.
The fact that Hollywood is and always has been an attempt to merge commerce and art is a sticky problem for everybody. And one can look at it as a challenge or one can look at it as a liability. It's both.
And you can't imagine how upset you can get yourself if you think that your work is getting screwed with. You know, you just start to get physically ill, you know, and you have these confrontations and meetings that you know you have to go to where you have to fight for this stuff, and it's tough, you know, if you care. But if you care, they use it against you. That's the trick. See, they know that you care, and then that makes you vulnerable. If you don't care, then you'd be just like them. They don't care, you know. So it's a tough. But everybody's, I mean, everybody's gone through it. Every director who's ever made a movie has had to go through this.
You're basically dealing with a business that may or may not need what you want to do. And if you want that end product to be very close to what you started out wanting to do, you either have to be very, very powerful, which we're not, or very, very stubborn, which we are.
You want to be treated like men? You want to be treated fair? If you stand alone, you're just so much shit to those people. You think this man is your enemy? Huh? This is a worker. Any union keeps this man out ain't a union. It's a goddamn club.
Most of the major studios said, you can't make a movie for $3.5 million. And of course, we can make a movie for $3.5 million, but I think what they were really saying is you can't make the kind of movie that we're interested in for $3.5 million. And so some people are impressed by, you know, how efficiently you can make a movie and how little money you really have to spend. And others really don't want to be associated with a 3.5. That's a come down. If you're a producer and you've been making $10 to $22 million movies, who wants to make a $3.5 million movie? You know, what's happened to me that I'm, you know, that should be my salary.
John had a unique experience in that he came to Hollywood to make a picture for Paramount. Not in his usual style. It was going to be a 35mm picture with big stars. He encountered the usual studio interference. He was not happy with the picture. He tore up his director's guild card and he said, I don't want to make this kind of movie. I want to be able to make movies exactly the way I make them. And because of that, he's been able to do movies exactly the way he wants. Now, he's not hitting as big an audience as he would if he was working for Paramount, but he's happier and he's making the movies that make him happy. So, I mean, he's doing the right thing. It's just that, you know, you have to buy, if you're going to buy into that, you have to realize that you're only making movies for a certain group of people. What it is you just have to try to maintain your own identity. And to try to maintain your own identity in a system that is geared against it is a challenge.
Always compromises. I think you make compromises working outside the system too. Anybody that tells you that you can go outside the system and make no compromises is a liar. If you work in the system, the one thing you do have is access to the facility and the means to work. If you work outside the system, you're usually scrambling for money and financing and support, so there are compromises that you make there. It's a question of which compromises hurt you the worst.
We had a picture called The Burbs that I did, which had a a dark ending. And the audience didn't like the ending. They didn't like the fact that the people who were the nominal heroes in the movie, who had acted very boorishly and badly throughout the picture, we're not glamorized. We're not treated like heroes at the end of the picture. And we went to the preview, and they said that they didn't like the ending. And so we shot 2 other endings, both of which made the people look like they were coming out in a better light. And the audience, the response went up slightly. They were a little happier with it. But the fact was that it made the picture worse. It wasn't the right ending. And but you know, then you're really faced with a moral choice. I mean, you're making you know, an expensive film without your own money. People are paying you to do it, and you know that what you're doing, it makes for the best picture, but is going to make for a picture that isn't going to make any money, and you know that it will be a flop. And then you have to say, okay, now what do I want to do? Do I have any allegiance to these people? I mean, don't I owe them a movie that's as successful as I can make it? Or should I stick to my guns and insist on an ending that makes me feel like I've made the right picture, but is a guaranteed disaster? Well, in this case, even though I had final cut on the movie, I couldn't come up with a logical reason. I just couldn't play the tortured artist and say, well, this is my ending and this is it, and you know, the hell with you, because it's just, I don't think it's the right thing to do. Piranha was a ripoff of Jaws that was very down and dirty, kind of quickly made picture. Whereas Jaws 2, which came out the same year, suffered from big studio-itis. It was interesting to compare the 2 pictures. I mean, I like the extra stuff that you get from working in a studio, and I certainly couldn't have made some of the bigger pictures that I've made, you know, off lots and outside studios, because they just would have been prohibitive. But there is something nice to be said about working quickly and cheaply, because there's a certain dynamism that comes from trying to get the shot and racing from location to location, and a lot of it becomes intuitive. You don't really have a chance to think about a lot of it. There was a previous script on Piranha written by a guy who could never think of how to get people into the water once people found out they were piranhas. So he invented a bear that chased everybody into the water so they could get eaten by piranhas. And then then they invented a forest fire that chased the bear into the water to get eaten by piranhas. And it wasn't too good. And it was going to be made. Roger had offered it to me, and we're going to make this picture, and we're going to make it in 2 months, and you know, and it was really just not makeable. And John came in. And completely rewrote it from page 1, changed all the characters, changed the location, changed everything. I think we managed to infuse it with a certain grade B sensational quality. And I put some political overtones in it and stuff. Roger always liked that. And you could put some sort of liberal political stuff into even the most outrageous projects.
People forget that all movies are political. It's just that if your political views or whatever the views or areas you're getting into are not the mainstream, they seem political. Whereas Beverly Hills Cop 2 is an extremely political film. There are all kinds of social and political attitudes in that film, and any kind of major film we could, attitudes toward life, attitudes toward men and women, attitudes toward violence, but they are much more the status quo, the mainstream idea, so nobody notices them.
I believe that the films I make are very political in their own particular way, but the genesis of their politics has really to do with the relationship between 2 people, which is, for me, the metaphor for all political relationships. The minute a man sits in a room and a woman walks in, that's a political situation. Or a woman sits in a room and a man walks in, that's a political situation, because they have to relate to each other. Issues such as fairness and dominance begin to come into play. All of these are models of any political situation. I think Tootsie was a very political film. I intended it as a political film. But it was a comedy, and it was, in some subtle way, I think it had the potential to reach people who would not otherwise be reached.
Gosh, I'm afraid you're not right for this role, though, honey. I'm sorry. Thanks for coming by.
Page 285. Do you want camera 1 or 2 on that?
Camera 2, and tell Art about that.
Why am I not right, Mr. Carlyle?
Well, I'm just trying to make a certain statement here, and I'm looking for a very specific physical type.
Mr. Carlyle, I'm an actress. I'm a character actress. I can play this part any way you want.
Honey, I'm sure that you're
Why
a
don't you
very,
give me an
very good
idea what you're
actress.
looking
It's just
for?
that you're a little bit too soft
What?
and genteel. You're not threatening enough.
Not threatening enough? How's this? You take your hands off me, or I'm gonna knee your balls right through the roof of your mouth. Is that enough of a threat?
Start?
Yes, I think I know what y'all really want. You want some gross caricature of a woman to prove some idiotic point, like power makes women masculine, or masculine women are ugly. Well, shame on the woman that lets you do that, on any woman that lets you do that. And that means you, dear. Miss Marshall, shame on you, you macho shithead.
I've done 7 films now with Redford. I've only done 15 films in total, so he's been in almost half of the films I've made. And I have, of course, found a way of working with him that's, for me, saves time and effort in the communication process. I know how he thinks pretty well, and I know what he's capable of by now, and he certainly knows how I think. It would be difficult to describe the working process, but shorthand is a good way to say it. He's become, for me, a kind of alter ego in terms of the roles he plays. I think they're all the same role, by the way. I mean, they're vastly different from an actor's point of view, but from a director's point of view, it's the same character that I've been playing around with for 25 years. He has this mixture, if you will, of the shiny exterior, the golden boy, and this very complicated, darker interior, very like America, very like this country.
In class. It's because I think we learn best from what's good. The name of the story is The All-American Smile, and it's by Hubble Gardner. In a way, he was like the country he lived in. Everything came too easily to him, but at least he knew it. About once a month, he worried that he was a fraud. But then most everybody he knew was awful. Sometimes he felt he was
wrong. As much as we would like to see Redford play an alcoholic, homosexual, transvestite, I don't know what, we really wouldn't want him to do that. We don't mind seeing another kind of actor do that who is also a star. But part of the mystique about an actor like Redford is this sort of hero myth.
A star brings a certain power to a movie, a certain aura, a certain history of being a star. They may have spent 15 to 20 movies creating a persona, and if that's not what you're hiring them to do in your movie, it's going to take you 15 to 20 minutes to say, folks, this isn't the usual Clint Eastwood, or this isn't the person that you think of when you see this face. And I usually don't have that 15, 20 minutes to spend on one character saying, oh no, this isn't that guy. Also, there's a balance. So if you have an ensemble piece, and many of my movies have been ensemble pieces, and you have a star who has a lot of individual aura, who's a person who doesn't share the screen well, whether they try to or not, it's going to throw an ensemble piece out because people are going to keep saying, well, what happened to him? You know, this can't be real action. He's not on screen. And just start waiting for that star to show up again, and wondering why all these non-entities aren't asking for their autograph when they do.
Stay hungry, guys. Stay hungry.
What's the scoop, Harry?
Mr. Comiskey sent these down for you. His congratulations for a successful pennant race.
Well, that's wide of him. He didn't happen to mention when we could expect that bonus he promised us if we took the flag, did he?
This is your bonus.
I think a lot of my movies have, in a way, been about community. Very often that means having a more ensemble cast. The problem that raises mostly is a movie problem, which is that people aren't used to that. They're used to having, okay, we have a cast of thousands, but really there's, Mel and Goldie and everybody else is an extra. Or, there's 3 people in the movie, Batman. There's lots of production value and lots of people in Batman, but there's really only about 5 characters. And everybody else is there to get snuffed, or to scream and yell and run wild in the streets or whatever, to the point where, they really are just extras. And when, at the end of it, the Joker says, and now I'm gonna kill you people, it's like, oh, it's time to get rid of the extras. The catering truck must be ready.
It's flat.
In the case of 8 Men Out, one of the real difficulties in selling that movie, and it took a very long time to sell it, was that the general studio response was, why can't we have it be about 1, maybe 2 characters, have it be 2 men out, or 1.5 men out, or 3 men and a baby and a lot of baseball players out.
I remember on this particular picture there was a lot of complaint. The studio thought there were too many gremlins. That's also what they said about the first picture. Too many gremlins. Prompting Steven Spielberg to say, well, should we call it People and cut all the gremlins out? I mean, I think it's fair to say that this is it's not a typical studio picture. I mean, it's a little weirder than your average studio movie, and you have to fight for it. You just have to fight for every frame. But when you have to think about fighting for every frame of a movie like this, you start to wonder if it's possible to make serious movies at all.
It's funny, the new ones aren't like Gizmo. The one with the stripes seems to be the leader.
You know what?
What?
I'll bet every kid in America would like to have one of these. They might even replace the dog as the family pet.
The dog in Gremlins is one of the best actors I ever worked with. I mean, it was like a textbook case. I mean, no matter what expression you wanted, there was one that he had done. And it looked like he was sad. It looked like he was inquisitive. Because he thought the Gremlins were real, and you would get these great. By not bringing him in until we were ready to shoot, you would get these tremendous reactions to these puppets that you just couldn't plan.
Almost every scene I've ever shot, I know something that could have made it better. For instance, with 8 Men Out, a good third of the movie takes place in a baseball stadium during the World Series. To be realistic, you don't have thousands of empty seats at the World Series. The stadium is filled. We were in a 15,000-seat stadium. The most extras we ever got was one day we had 1,000 people. So you have to say, okay, how many seats are we going to show? So we stood on third base and pointed toward first base. And so, okay, if we're shooting over the third baseman's shoulder toward first with 100 millimeter lens on, and we'd had a couple PAs move, okay, you're on this edge of the frame, you're on this edge of the frame. We'd mark it off and we'd say, aha, in that V, there are 500 people. If we shoot with a 50, which would be the ideal lens to make it seem like it's a long throw to first, we're into 3,000 people. So there's always those kind of things that are just practical, economic. We can't show this. We can't, the pan stops here.
You don't want to arrive on a set having no idea what you're going to do. That would be disastrous. On the other hand, I think it's a mistake to arrive with everything so drawn down in stickboard figures that you're immune to the real life that you could not have predicted. You need to be able to see suddenly what happens when an actor sits down and turns a certain way and the other actor's back is to them, and you say, oh my God, that's terrific. Just do it that way.
If you knew exactly what was going to happen, the way Hitchcock used to make movies, he used to, board them all out and then illustrate the boards. He's the only one who's ever been able to do that because it's just not a very interesting way to work. Then you know exactly what's going to happen every day when you go to work, and it's not. part of the fun is you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what wonderful, magical moment is going to take place that you didn't even expect.
Are you trying to panic New York City?
Absolutely.
The reviews of the Corman New World pictures used to say in Variety that they had a lovely autumnal glow to them, and it was usually because most of the footage was exposed between 4 and 7. At the end of the day, when you were so far behind, you just had to keep shooting. And to set up a dolly track and be able to shoot several different scenes off the same track in different directions to make it look like you've actually gone to different locations. On a picture I did called The Howling, we had a location mix-up, and the location that we were supposed to shoot a hunting scene in was booked for the wrong day. So we had to go to a location that was actually supposed to be a hot tub scene and shoot the hunting scene. And you just improvise. I mean, you just go, okay, now what am I going to do? How can I, what's the least I can do to get this scene to make sense, and then how can I make it better?
It would be wonderful to be able to write on film, to write with the production, to say, oh, let's try this angle, or let's keep the scene running and see where you people go, and then we'll cover it if it's any good. You know, it'd be great to do that, but we just can't afford to do it. If you want to think of it this way, 2 basic ways to make a movie. One is to be like a sculptor who takes a huge stack of marble and chisels this little statue out of it. He sees that statue in there, but he doesn't see it until he's knocked away half the marble, and then it begins to take shape and whatever. And you can get some wonderful stuff. I assume that Apocalypse Now, there's a lot of great stuff on the cutting room floor, and it was this enormous block of granite when he had finished with that footage. The other way is to say, I can't afford all that, marble, give me, enough pieces to make, here's the statue, I'm gonna draw it in scale. Give me just enough, concrete, and I'm gonna make a mold and I'm gonna pour that, and that's all I can afford. And that's basically what we've had to do with the budgets that we have, is it has to be written first and you have to stay with it. In these specific scenes, what you're seeing is one character, Nick, who's kind of the catalyst for one important half of the story of City Hope. And we're going to find him in this bar. We're going to have several of the threads of his plot reinforced, several of the things that he's worried about or wants or whatever. He's interested in this woman. He's seen her once before in the day. You know that he's looking for some kind of personal connection to save him from what he sees as the incredible waste of his life right now. Scene 26, back in the Rock Club at night. Applause. Bobby and Zip's band have just finished their set. We follow Nick across in front of the stage as Bobby speaks over the microphone. Thank you. In a few minutes, we'll have cheese in the mail to do a set for you. Then we'll be back around midnight. Thanks for coming. Nick bends down to talk to Angela, alone at her table for a moment.
I like you.
I like you.
What?
What?
I don't even know you,
but I'm positive that I like you.
I like you.
Oh.
I recognize you. You were a senior when I was in 9th. You remember?
Yeah. You had a brother play basketball, right? He was ahead of me. Yeah.
Tony.
Tony Rinaldi. He was major heartthrob. Yeah, he went over there and...
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sad.
You went out with that creep, that who's it's, Michael Rizzo, right?
We got married.
Oh. Really? I walked right into that, huh?
Was he a creep in high school already? I don't remember.
One of the things I've done here is we didn't do that much coverage on this. For one thing, it was probably about 2 in the morning when we started the scene, and the actors had been up for a long time, so you know that they're going to look like hell about 4 o'clock, so you don't plan too much coverage. Once again, it's very mechanical and very simple. Fairly basic is that I'm not putting them in a profile 2 shot. I'm not putting them together until they've gone further into this relationship. So they're still in separate cuts. You know, he's on his side of the cut, she's on her side of the cut. The one that I will do is there's a certain point here where I go from over-the-shoulder shots, which are, the characters are kind of connected but a little further from the screen, into singles where you don't see Angela here and you don't see Nick there. And the place that I chose to do that was right about when he starts to talk about something much more personal.
Yeah, that was sad.
You went out with that creep, that who's it's, Michael Rizzo, right?
We got married.
Oh.
And
really?
Now you're into the singles.
I walked right into that, huh?
Was he a creep in high school already? I don't remember.
Another thing that you notice here is opposed to the first shot where you want to feel the world around you and anybody may pop out of that world. Here they are and they're kind of isolated from it. Everything is out of focus in the background. We will eventually put in the chatting at the bar. I've ended the music. There's a pool table behind her. We'll put the click of the ball, that kind of stuff, to give a general ambience, but it will be very, very indistinct and very, very general.
Yeah, I do. You're something great.
I'm glad you think so.
I will see you again. Believe this.
And I find that getting that core idea through to the finished movie is kind of like getting a bill through Congress in the United States, government system, where you propose the bill, then it goes to committees. The committees tamper around with it. Writers are attached very often that have nothing to do. Let's say it's a bill about clean water. You may end up with a bill about clean water and there's some pork belly legislation attached to it that's about putting a missile silo in South Carolina. And that's the price that you pay for getting the vote of that senator or congressman or whatever. It's rewritten several times. So that the bill that finally may even be enacted into the law may be a quarter of what you originally wanted that bill to be, and in fact it actually may end up doing more harm to the thing that you wanted to save than what you started in the first place.
In the best possible world, well, I guess the best possible world is you produce the movie yourself, and you do it with your own money, and you answer to no one. The only problem is that this is an incredibly expensive medium, and there aren't very many people, no matter how rich they are, who are going to be able to make 2 or 3 of these pictures on their own, and not have to face the consequences if they're not gigantic hits, because the pressure to make a gigantic hit is the big problem in movies today. Because the more money a picture costs, the more homogenized the product is expected to be.
Part of the reason you make films is because you want, in some way, to create a simultaneousness of feeling in people, that you need the sense that you're arousing certain emotions or you're touching people in a way. And if in fact nobody's touched or nobody goes to see it, it's a kind of an empty exercise.